Imagine a world where you never have to answer to a manager again. No more 9-to-5 cubicles, no more passive-aggressive emails, and no more begging for vacation time. This was the radiant promise of the gig economy. Companies like Uber, DoorDash, and TaskRabbit didn't just sell services. They sold a dream of total autonomy. They promised that the smartphone in your pocket was actually the key to your financial liberation, turning every citizen into a CEO of their own destiny. It started with a whisper of innovation. Silicon Valley disruptors claimed they were breaking the chains of corporate drudgery. Millions flocked to these platforms, lured by the "Be Your Own Boss" slogans plastered across every digital billboard. In the beginning, the incentives were generous, the bonuses were frequent, and the flexibility seemed genuine. It felt like a revolution in labor, where the worker finally held the leverage. But beneath the polished user interface, a much more complex and calculated trap was slowly being set. Meet David, a father of 3 who traded his steady factory job for the driver's seat. Initially, he was making $600 a weekend. He felt energized, finally able to attend his daughter's soccer games. The freedom was intoxicating. He was the poster child for the gig revolution. However, David didn't realize that he was part of a massive psychological experiment. The high payouts were subsidized by venture capital, designed to flood the market with workers and kill off the traditional competition. The magic was in the algorithm. This invisible hand managed millions of workers simultaneously without ever speaking a single word. It tracked every movement, every hesitation, and every decline. The app used sophisticated gamification techniques, borrowed directly from the gambling industry, to keep people working just one more hour. Bright lights, satisfying pings, and progress bars created a dopamine loop that made labor feel like a video game. But in this game, the house always had the ultimate advantage over the player. As more workers joined the platforms, the balance of power shifted. The market became oversaturated. Where there used to be 5 drivers for a neighborhood, there were now 50. The algorithm, once generous, became demanding. It started penalizing workers for not accepting every low-paying task. The flexibility began to vanish. If you didn't work during the peak hours dictated by the machine, you simply didn't make enough to survive. The boss hadn't disappeared. The boss had just become a line of code. Investigating the data reveals a startling trend across the globe. From London to New York, the average hourly earnings for gig workers began a steady, agonizing decline. While the tech giants reported record-breaking growth and multi-billion-dollar valuations, the people providing the actual labor were seeing their margins evaporate. The cost of living was rising, but the per-mile rate was falling. The system was designed to optimize for corporate profit by squeezing every possible cent from the bottom of the ladder. The hidden costs were the silent killers of the dream. Workers were responsible for their own fuel, vehicle maintenance, insurance, and taxes. When David calculated his true earnings after expenses, his $20 an hour wage plummeted to less than the local minimum wage. He was effectively paying for the privilege of working. The risk had been entirely shifted from a multi-billion-dollar corporation onto the individual worker. One flat tire or a minor fender bender could wipe out an entire week's worth of exhausting labor. Legal loopholes became the primary weapon of the gig giants. By classifying their workforce as independent contractors rather than employees, they avoided paying for health care, sick leave, or Social Security. This wasn't an accident. It was a foundational business strategy. By stripping away the safety net that took decades of labor movements to build, these companies turned the clock back a century on worker protections. The gig economy was effectively resurrecting the piecework systems of the Industrial Revolution, rebranded for the digital age. The psychological pressure of the rating system added another layer of control. One bad review from an upset customer could mean immediate deactivation. There was no human resources department to appeal to, no union representative to argue your case. The fear of the 5-star rating kept workers in a state of constant anxiety, forcing them to perform unpaid emotional labor just to keep their jobs. The power dynamic was absolute. You were only as good as your last transaction, and the machine was always watching. We spoke to an anonymous software engineer who worked on these dispatch algorithms. They confirmed that the software is programmed to identify desperate workers. It knows who has a car payment due and who is likely to accept a sub-minimum wage job just to cover rent. This predatory surge pricing for labor ensures that the platform always has enough bodies to meet demand, regardless of the human cost. The algorithm doesn't see people. It sees data points to be manipulated for maximum efficiency. Across the world, the backlash is beginning. Protests are erupting in city centers as workers demand a living wage and basic dignity. The illusion of freedom is shattering, replaced by the grim reality of the algorithmic cage. Families are being torn apart by the 14-hour days required just to stay afloat. The gig trap is no longer a secret. It is a global crisis of labor. The very technology that promised to liberate us has become a sophisticated tool for modern-day digital serfdom. But this is only the beginning of our investigation. As we dig deeper into the corporate boardrooms and the dark corridors of tech lobbying, we uncover a plan far more sinister than just underpaying drivers. They are aiming for the complete deregulation of the global workforce. If they succeed, the traditional job, as we know it, might disappear forever for everyone. Join us in the next episode as we expose the lobbyists who are rewriting our laws in the shadows. The trap is closing.